Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
The Stock Movers Report, your roundup of companies making moves in the stock market, harnessing the power of Bloomberg data.
Let's take a look at some stocks on the move today. With us is Denitsa Sakova, cross-asset reporter at Bloomberg News. Denitsa, you're looking at a popular company here with anyone who works in an office in New York City and likes to eat lunch.
We're talking about lunch and we're talking about Cava, and I personally really like them, but they're having a pretty bad day. They dropped as much as 6%. Now they're down about 3%. The losses are coming after earnings report. That was a good earnings report, but analysts are saying it doesn't just justify their hefty valuation. So it's interesting. That's obviously a very competitive place, a very competitive space. There is Sweetgreen, there are all those brands. Cava is not necessarily the most expensive. Sweetgreen is more expensive. Cava raised their prices about 2% earlier in the year, but they still remain a little bit cheaper than competitors. We saw some good news in the report. Sales at established restaurants grew. We saw some very important metrics of earnings growing. One thing, Cava has been outpacing competitors in the recent quarters. So expectations have been quite high going into this report. Perhaps one reason we're seeing some disappointment. The stock is actually down 15% this year. Of course, this comes after 160% surge last year. But definitely this earnings report is not adding too much optimism for analysts.
That stock is still up 125% since IPOing.
It is.
It's incredible.
However, if you go back and look at the 1 year chart, then you go back to the highs of December of 2024, so not even that long ago, it's still down about 36% from then.
All about timing.
$11 billion market cap.
Yeah. The food is good.
They still don't have one near our office. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yes, that's true. But their dips are amazing. But yeah.
But we digress. Okay.
We digress.
Let's talk crypto.
Let's talk about Coinbase. What a week it has been for Coinbase. I feel in terms of news stories, it's probably like a 1 year cycle in a week.
Right.
So the stock is actually up about 9% on Friday. And if you look at this week, if you zoom out, I love that stat. The stock is up more than 30% over the last 5 sessions, which is the best weekly gain since President Trump reelection. So the week started with a lot of bad news. We had the news about the hack. Then we had an estimate that is going to cost about 400 millions. We know hackers gained access to customer data, names, dates of birth, all those super sensitive information. There are a lot of investigations and things going on. But there is a lot of concern with that. We also had a confirmation of reports that U.S. regulators were investigating the user figures the company quoted before their IPO. So obviously, all those things away from this, the company is joining the S&P 500. This is obviously a massive milestone. It's happening next week. And that's clearly boosting the stock, adding a lot of optimism. Of course, the index effect, Emily was writing about it. But it's an important thing to launch going forward. All those passive money mutual funds tracking the stock, that's a big boost.
It is.
That could help.
That helped earlier this week in the single day stock move, which was more than 25%.
Yeah.
What I found fascinating, you don't see that every time a company is added to an index.
Right.
It's not, you don't always see a bump like that. I mean, why would you see a bump like that with this time, but not necessarily other companies?
I think Coinbase is such a well-known name within the stock market, because sometimes the companies get added to the S&P. No offense to them, but it's like, I don't hear that name. Coinbase, you see the ads. They have Super Bowl ads. They have obviously like a big popularity with anyone who's trying to buy crypto in the US. A lot of them use that exchange. It's a very like user-friendly, familiar company. So maybe that added to the market action.
I totally agree with you. Also, it's a risk-on week. Everything is rallying. All the risk-on currents of the market, crypto. So that's also a stock that's driven by sentiment.
Okay, 30 seconds left for applied materials.
Last one. It fell as much as 7.3%. It came off a lackluster forecast for the current period. Of course, we're talking about the trade war. Of course, we're talking about China there. Of course, in the last 2 weeks, there has been so much back and forth. But what we're seeing now is China accounted for 25% of applied materials sales last quarter, which is down from 43%. So a really big drop there. And obviously there is a lot of volatility. This is currently the largest American maker of chip maker gear. And it's likely going to be impacted by all of those restrictions we're seeing on sales to China. The company is still up 2%, so we're yet to see if the drop yesterday if the drop today is going to hold. But a tough day today.
The Stock Movers Report from Bloomberg Radio. Check back with us throughout the day for the latest roundup of companies making news on Wall Street. And for the latest market-moving headlines, listen to Bloomberg Radio live. Catch us on YouTube, Bloomberg.com, and on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.